You better pray that your league mates aren't watching this video because I'm going to be giving away the secrets of winning leagues. And that's going to be adjusting to your specific league settings, including your starting lineup, your scoring, the amount of teams in your league, your IR slot rules. That's going to include if it's a keeper league, if it's a 6-point passing touchdown format. We're going to talk about it all. And I'm even going to give you mock drafts at the end of this, where I'll show you how to win in a 10-team league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex versus a 12-team league where you have multiple flex spots, because the strategies are completely different. Starting with the amount of players that are in your starting lineup. So if you looked at the draft sheets that we posted on flogfantasy.com, you will see that I have different rankings, whether you're in a league that starts 7 players or you're in a league that starts 8 players. And how we are defining how many players are in your starting lineup is the accumulation of quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and flex. We're not going to be including defenses or kickers because nobody here is going to be starting more than 1 kicker or more than 1 defense. And if you are a crazy person. But if we are looking at the amount of players that go into your starting lineup, it dramatically impacts how you should be attacking the quarterback and tight end position. So I'm going to do this for every scoring format as well, whether it's PPR, half PPR, non-PPR, but first starting with the PPR formats because that's what I make all the rankings on this channel for. That's what my main rankings are posted on the site. Obviously, if you're in a half PPR, non-PPR league, you're going to also access those draft sheets, which should adjust to your exact scoring format as well. But regardless, in a full PPR league, if your starting lineup is only quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 tight end slot, what you're going to see is tight end on average is going to take up about 12.5% of your starting lineup output from a week-to-week perspective, and quarterback's going to take up 21%. However, the more flex spots that you add in, you're going to see the percentage of your starting lineup output from quarterback and tight end slowly but surely shrink. You'll see in a regular league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, that quarterback percentage is going to go from 21.1% down to 18.7%. Tight end's going to go from 12.3% down to 10.9%. You're going to see that in a league where you have multiple flex spots, quarterback's going to go all the way down to 16.9% and tight end's going to be 9.9%. And if we're looking at a start 9 league, this is going to be a very deep format, of course. Quarterback's going down to 15.4% and tight end's going down to 9%. So the general rule of thumb, and you'll see this in our draft sheets, is if you're in a league with fewer flex spots, you're incentivized to get an elite quarterback. That's why in 10-team leagues where you only start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, I rank Josh Allen as middle of round 2 picks as opposed to the Flock League where it's a 12-team format and we can start up to 4 wide receivers weekly and it's full PPR. There, those quarterbacks actually for me are going to be late round 3 picks, and at the same time, we're going to be pushing the tight ends down. Now, it's not just going to impact how you value quarterback and tight end for the amount of starters in your lineup, but it's also going to if you're playing in a non-PPR or half PPR format. And the reason for this is when you take away that half point per reception or when you take away that full point per reception, it's going to drive down the scores for what you have with running backs, wide receivers, tight ends as they all catch footballs. But you know who doesn't get impacted in a non-PPR league? That's going to be the quarterback position. So if you see in a start 6 half PPR league, the quarterback scores 23.8% of your lineup as opposed to only 21.1% in a full PPR. And that jumps to a 27% mark in a non-PPR start 6 league. And then obviously we already talked about the amount of starters impacting the percentages from there, but a general trend as well is if you're playing in that non-PPR format, if you're playing in that half PPR league, quarterback scoring is going to be even that much more important, which is why you can see that those elite quarterbacks go to the top of the very beginning of round 2 in my rankings in non-PPR leagues where you don't have a ton of flex spots. Now, speaking of the flex, I know a lot of people are just going to immediately jump and go, oh, okay, well, I'm assuming that in a full PPR format, we're starting all wide receivers in the flex, and in a non-PPR league, we're starting all running backs in the flex. And that's somewhat close to being true. What I did is I looked at last year, and we took the top 60 flex options, and I looked how many were wide receiver, running back, and tight end. And you'll see in a full PPR format, 34 of them were wide receiver. That only falls to 31 of them in a half PPR league, and that only falls to 30 of them in a non-PPR format. So in reality, while of course you're more likely to play a running back in the flex spot if you're in a non-PPR format as opposed to a full PPR league, those marginal players down there that are kind of bench options, just stashes, and you're trying to determine if you should start them, whether or not it's the right matchup, that's not going to change too much. Wide receivers are still kind of going to be that play because if you think about it, there are only so many starting running backs in the NFL, right? You're not going to be able to go out there and throw in the running back 3 on a depth chart or a running back that doesn't get volume just because it's a non-PPR league. No, you still need to find a starting running back. So where the difference actually is when you're looking at non-PPR, full PPR, and half PPR leagues is going to be the scores at the very top. So you will see that in a full PPR format, out of the top 20 flex plays, 11 of them were wide receiver and only 9 were running back. But as you transition to a non-PPR league, only 4 are wide receiver and 16 are running back. So reality is that in a non-PPR format, having the running backs at the very top of your draft and then filling out the middle to late rounds with wide receiver is what you want to be doing, as opposed to if you're in a full PPR league, early round wide receiver does look like it's a slightly better play, which you'll see that reflected in our draft sheets, of course, where I update all my rankings specifically to all these numbers and your exact league settings. And if you don't already have access to all our draft sheets, like I already said, we posted them on flockfantasy.com. Just go to the recent post section. And if you're not a member of the Flock already, we just dropped the 2025 season pass, which we've never done anything like this. This is definitely the cheapest and the best deal you're ever going to find in fantasy football. It's $34 for all my draft sheets, all the draft sheets and draft guides of everybody on flockfantasy.com, all of our rankings, both rest of season and weekly, all the way until January 1st. And you'll get access to all the tools on the site, like the trade calculator, the trade finder, the My Teams page, the range of outcomes, the player comparison, all until January 1st. And if you use promo code FLOCK, I will be answering your start sit questions and your trade questions during the season as well. I'll leave a link to that in the description and comment section. I'm going to do 2 different mock drafts on the site. One is going to be a 10-team league with the single flex, and the second one's going to be a 12-team league with 2 flex spots, so I can show you exactly how you want to be adjusting to your league settings. So if you ever wanted to draft in a public lobby, you can always go to flockfantasy.com where there are public drafts happening every single day. There have already been over 27,000 drafts on flockfantasy.com this offseason, or you can draft against bots with the draft simulation, and that's what we're going to be doing today. We're first going to do the 10-team league with only 1 flex spot. I think that actually a lot of y'all are going to be playing in this format. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to draft in the 6th spot in both of these, just so there's some type of consistency between the 2 drafts. Drafts going off in 10 seconds. And as we do this as well, I'm actually going to be using one of our draft sheets that we posted here. This is going to be the 10-team PPR start 7. As players go off the board, I'm going to be marking them off myself, and I will let you know exactly who the best player available is. And right now, the best player available on this sheet is going to be Justin Jefferson. So we will take Justin Jefferson in round 1. But I want you to remember that here in a 10-team single flex league, you don't necessarily need to just continuously build around wide receiver the entire time. And you're going to see that in our rankings. So now that we have Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown all off the board, I would actually say that what you're going to want to look at is you're going to want to look at either Brock Bowers or Derrick Henry. And as I discussed previously, here in a league with only 1 flex spot, Brock Bowers is going to make up a much higher percentage of your starting lineup output weekly. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take Brock Bowers at the 205 to get the elite level quarterback. And I'm going to follow this up with Josh Allen at the 306. Because again, if you go over and you look at our starting lineup here, we only need to start a total of 3 wide receivers at the very most. So when we're on the clock again, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pull the trigger on Kyron Williams, begin to build out our running back room. But I'm really excited about getting both the elite quarterback and the elite tight end. You'll see this is very different when we do the 12-team draft. Jalen Hurts in the 5th round would be an incredible value. However, we are going to be going with Kenneth Walker. When you have Josh Allen and Brock Bowers, you most likely are not going to be taking another quarterback or tight end in the rest of this draft. And if you do, it would be at the very end. So if you want to know why I'm just taking the players at the top of this list every single time, this is sorted by my rankings on the site. If you're a paid member of flogfantasy.com, when you're doing these mock drafts, you can actually sort it by any creator rankings that you want. And obviously, I'm going to be sorting it by mine. So now we're sitting with Jefferson, DJ Moore at wide receiver. We have Kyron and Kenneth Walker at running back. We have the QB1 and the tight end 1 overall. And we have a lot of flexibility with what we can do over the next few rounds. So if we're looking at the running backs versus receivers, we should have a teardrop at running back where in the coming rounds, you're only going to have a bunch of receivers coming up. So I'm actually going to deviate from our rankings. While I have Calvin Ridley ranked ahead of DeAndre Swift, again, wide receiver is going to be much easier to come by in this 10-team league with only one flex. So I'm going to follow it up with Montgomery as well. I think if we are taking any player at this point, rounds 8 or beyond, more likely than not, they are not going to hit our starting lineup week 1. So if we're looking at the highest ceiling possible, Jahmyr Gibbs goes down, and a 10-team league with only one flex, David Montgomery can be a top 10 running back and can win you your league. And plus, you look at the teardrop, I knew that wide receivers are going to be highest in my rankings very, very soon. So we're able to get Stephon Diggs at the 906, and we probably will be able to get a wide receiver here as well. If we wanted to go best player available in our rankings, we could go Jordan Mason, but that would be our 5th running back. Wide receiver, we have Jefferson, DJ Moore, and Stephon Diggs. So I'm actually going to follow this up with one more wide receiver in Cooper Kupp, just to get a little more flexibility at the position. Then we have some more tight ends going. We have Brock Purdy off the board. Mark Andrews is my highest ranked player, but again, we have Brock Bowers, so we get the flexibility to just continue to hammer in running back upside. If Caleb Johnson turns into nothing, Jaylen Warren could potentially be the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that gives him the upside to move the needle in a format like this. We're just going to go ahead. We will take Keon Coleman as our wide receiver 5 at this point. Again, shooting for the highest ceiling we can possibly get in a 10-team league with only one flex spot. Next player available, we can just go ahead and we can take J.K. Dobbins. Again, if anything were to occur to RJ Harvey, I think J.K. Dobbins could be a league winner behind that offensive line in Denver. And then for our final pick, you can go a couple different ways, but 10-team single flex league, I'll always be able to pick up quarterback, always be able to pick up a tight end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to my rankings. I have Nick Chubb ranked as a great pick in the last round with the Joe Mixon injury at this point, because realistically with Nick Chubb, we would know that if we were able to cut him after week 1. So if you're looking at the expert average rankings, they're going to have me down here at the 9 slot. However, I'm going to sort the values in the league analyzer by my own rankings. I would jump up to 3rd in that instance. Here we are sitting with the elite quarterback, Josh Allen, Brock Bowers. We have running backs, Kyron, Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, Jaylen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb. Wide receiver, we have Jefferson, DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, and Keon Coleman. So if you go back to those sheets that we showed at the beginning, where in a 10-team league with only one flex spot, quarterback and tight end is going to make up such a high percentage of our starting lineup output that we want to be aggressively attacking those positions. This is the perfect type of build for that format. However, as you'll see in 1 second, when we transition over to what we are doing with a double flex league, you will see it's going to be a little bit different, where we're a little more inclined to take wide receivers early. So now we're going to go ahead and we are going to get in that 12-team league with 2 flexes. And again, we are going to be using a different draft sheet this time. I still want to be selecting from the 6th slot. I don't want to change anything there, so you can see exactly how we change the overall strategy. But now I'm going to go over to those draft sheets on the site, and I'm actually going to be pulling up the 12-team start 8-1, and you will see that the overall big board is going to be a little bit different with the positions that we are wanting to target both early and through the middle rounds. So we can go ahead and take Saquon Barkley. When you're at pick 6, you just take whoever falls between Chase, Gibbs, Bijan, Lamb, Jefferson, and Barkley. Very easy. And we'll see that you actually had Brock Bowers go off the board at the 203 in this draft. So even if we could get him, we probably wouldn't have gone Bowers though. Ladd McConkey is the highest ranked player on the expert average, and Ladd McConkey is the highest ranked player in my own rankings. And again, when we are drafting in a 12-team league with 2 flex spots, we want to be trying to build around wide receiver early, especially. So despite Lamar Jackson being the highest ranked player in my own rankings, with the current status of Najee Harris looking like he is not going to be playing football anytime soon, I'm actually going to go with another skill position here, and I'm going to go with Amari and Hampton, and we're going to be planning on getting our quarterbacks and tight ends later. Pulling this up, our highest ranked players are James Cook, Terry McLaurin, Kenneth Walker. I'm going to go James Cook, but this does put us in a little bit of an awkward spot where if we only have Ladd McConkey through the first 4 rounds, we are going to need to play catch up at wide receiver. I have Waddle's the highest ranked player in my rankings. We'll go ahead and we'll take him here at the 506. Obviously, you still want to be focusing in a decent amount on the running backs in a double flex league, as you can flex those RBs. But as we get back up on the clock and you're looking at Montgomery, Pacheco, Jordan Addison, let me sort by the average expert rankings. The average expert have Burrow and Laporta as the top 2. If this was a 10-team league with only 1 flex, I would possibly consider Sam Laporta at this point. But instead, with us having 2 flex spots, like the Flock League, and you saw my strategy in the Flock League last year, leaning heavily on receiver, I will instead decide to go with Jordan Addison. Now that we're back up on the clock, highest ranked player according to the expert average, or according to me, is David Montgomery. The expert average has it as Aaron Jones. Realistically, I'm going to run with my rankings here, though. I'm going to be taking David Montgomery with the recent reports that we have surrounding the Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones potential split backfield. Now let's move this over. We have Bo Nix off the board here at the 807. And realistically, even in a double flex league, at this point, we should have been able to fill up our wide receiver, running back, and flex spots. But the depth is going to be so important here that I'm actually completely fine just continuing to take skill positions if those are the best players available. Looking at my rankings at this point, Baker Mayfield's very close to Michael Pittman Jr., but I am going to go with Pittman. As crazy as that seems, because I do think we're going to get a teardrop at wide receiver relatively soon. And then I can be looking at a bunch of quarterbacks, tight ends over the coming rounds. So one thing that's going to be interesting here is there are a couple teams between our next 2 picks that don't have any quarterbacks just yet. So I do expect that we're probably not going to get Caleb, Purdy, or Justin Fields on the way back around. So if we were, actually, maybe we can get Fields. So for that reason, I'm going to take Travis Etienne as our 5th running back. And we're really going to push this as that example of double flex 12-team format, full PPR. We are going to be trying to wait as late as we can with these QBs. So if you're looking at my rankings, Caleb Williams is the highest ranked quarterback. We will take Caleb here at the 1007 as our QB1. Trey Harris goes right before us. So our highest ranked players, Jalen Warren. The expert average also has Jalen Warren as the highest ranked player, but we have 5 very capable running backs, with Travis Etienne being our 5th RB. So realistically, I think I'm actually going to be passing on running back here, and I'm going to take my next highest ranked quarterback, which is going to be Justin Herbert at the 1106. And then we will be responsible, of course, for playing the matchups between Justin Herbert and Caleb Williams. Moving this over, we are going to be looking at tight ends now as my best available. That's what's there in my rankings, and we don't have a tight end so far. So we're going to take Dallas Goedert as our tight end 1 at the 1207. And then realistically, never mind. I thought there was a chance that we were going to be able to get Dalton Kincaid on the way back, but he does get sniped. I have Kyle Pitts ranked as my highest player. The expert average has CJ Stroud, but I'm not going to be taking a 3rd quarterback ever. So for that reason, quarterbacks are pretty much off my board at this point, and we will take our 2nd tight end with Kyle Pitts. And then in the last round in all these drafts, I'm always wanting to go through, and I'm always wanting to take a player that I think we could cut if they don't have a role that we like right after the first week of the season. So running backs like Braylon Allen and Miles Sanders are great examples of those, where we've had a lot of conversation from Jets camp saying that Braylon Allen's going to split the backfield with Breece Hall. So I'm going to take Braylon Allen here at the 1407. And if he doesn't have the workload we like in week 1, we will go ahead and we will just cut him afterwards. But let's pull up the power rankings from this draft. The expert average in this draft does have me at the 4 slot. If you look at my own rankings, it puts me at number 1. Thank God. But if we're looking at this, we have the 2nd best running back room in this league, according to the league analyzer, with Barkley, Hampton, James Cook, David Montgomery, Travis Etienne, Braylon Allen. We have the 9th best receiver room with Ladd McConkey, Jalen Warren, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman Jr. Tight end, we have Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts. Quarterback, we have Caleb and Justin Herbert. So realistically, this is never my plan in a full PPR format going into a draft, but it actually does look like we would be starting 2 running backs in the flex spots early in the season, whether that's Amari and Hampton at RB2, and then James Cook and Montgomery at the flexes, or Amari and Hampton at the flex. Regardless, our week 1 starting lineup is Caleb, Barkley, Hampton, Ladd, Waddle, then James Cook, David Montgomery in our flexes, and probably Dallas Goedert at tight ends. But the big differences that you saw here in the double flex 12-team league as opposed to the 10-team single flex league, 10-team single flex, give me the elite quarterback, give me the elite tight end. They're pushed up my boards. 12-team double flex, late quarterback, late tight end, because you need to prioritize the skill positions. But I think that should be good to cover how we are changing due to league size and starting lineup requirements. Let's transition over to the rest of this, but I will remind you, of course, that you can always go through and hop in a draft on flockfantasy.com. There have been over 27,000 drafts already completed, and you can see that these public mock draft lobbies are filling up constantly, or you can draft in a draft simulation for your exact league settings against the bots on the site. But that's all I got. Let's get to the rest of this video. But let's transition past the scoring and the starting lineup sizes, and let's go ahead and let's look at what we have with the IR eligibility. So it's going to be incredibly important as you get to the middle to the late rounds to do the research of your fantasy league before you start your draft to determine, can I put a suspended player in the IR slot? Can I put a player that goes on the PUP, goes on the IR in the IR slot? If you don't have injured reserve slots, you have no business drafting Rashee Rice. You have no business drafting Quinshon Judkins. A player like Brandon Ayuk is going to hurt more than he's going to help, because what's going to happen is you're going to take Ayuk, put him on your bench, and then when he's not playing through the first 6 weeks of the season, you're not going to be able to make waiver wire moves. You're actually going to be able to be outmaneuvered by your league mates, and they have a better shot to find the next league-winning player off the waiver wire like Kyron Williams a couple years ago, or like Puka Nacua a couple years ago. So if you're in a league in which you have unlimited IR slots, or you can throw multiple players there, whether they're suspended or they are on the PUP, then honestly, it's a really good idea to go and target Rashee Rice, to go target Brandon Ayuk, to go target Chris Godwin if you can get that discounts, because it will give you that added maneuverability with the waiver wire early in the year, with the added bonus that you have the upside near the end of the season. Now, another important factor that I'm sure if you're listening to us answer trade questions during the season, or if you're playing around with the trade calculator on flockfantasy.com, every time we get a trade sent to us, my first thing is, let's see how many teams are in this league, because you really have to understand with your league size, the value of a replacement level player. Now, the easiest way to do this is just show you exactly what you should expect for a value replacement in an 8-team, 10-team, 12-team, 14-team, and 16-team league today. And that's going to be by doing some simple math, where the average fantasy football league is probably going to be a 15-round draft, where one of those picks will be a kicker, one of those picks will be a defense. So in reality, you only have about 13 offensive players. So I went ahead and we multiplied 13 by 8, 13 by 10, 13 by 12, 14, and 16. And we saw how many offensive players are going to be rostered in your league for every league size that you have. And in an 8-team league, you have phenomenal options on the waiver wire. You may have guys like Cooper Kupp, Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet, Cam Scatterbo, Jaden Higgins, Luther Burden, Keon Coleman, Jalen Warren, Rashad Bateman, J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Trey Benson. You will always be able to go to the waiver wire and find somebody that you can put in your starting lineup. What's going to be very difficult to find in an 8-team league is those actual league winners, the guys that are moving the needle, and those guys that can give you a significant edge at maybe a onesie position like tight ends or like quarterback. So actually in that 8-team format, in that 10-team league, as I already previously mentioned, if you look at our draft sheets, we're going to be a lot higher on the Brock Bowers of the world. We're going to be a lot higher on the Trey McBride of the world, because running back and wide receiver is actually going to be replaceable on the waiver wire. And we want to find a way to differentiate our roster from the other elite level teams, because there's not a lot of competition. If you're looking at a 10-team league, the top players that may be on your waiver wire will be names like Quentin Johnston, Byshell Tootin, Ramondre Stevenson, Shaheed Najee, Kyle Williams, Christian Kirk, Hollywood Brown, Dylan Sampson. 12-team league, you have like Nick Chubb, Marvin Mims, Pat Bryant, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Wright, Xavier Legette, Jerome Ford, Jalen Knoll, Rico Dowdle. Once you get to like a 14-team league, 16-team league, it gets very, very ugly. 14-team league, like the best players on your waiver wire may be DJ Giddens, Jarquez Hunter, like Joshua Palmer. 16-team league, you may be looking at like Roman Wilson, Devin Neal, Blake Corum, Dontavian Wicks. So If you're in that 14 team format, if you're in that 16 team format, I'm actually going to be punting tight ends. I'm going to make sure we get our running backs and wide receivers early because it's going to be impossible to find those replacements on the waiver wire. And for that reason as well, in an 8-team and a 10-team format, I'm extremely interested in 2-for-1, 3-for-1 deals where I'm going to send you 2 of my mid-tier players to hopefully do anything I can to get to an above tier because I can just go pick up somebody really exciting off the waiver wire like Cam Scadaboo. Now, I know this isn't going to apply to everybody, but I do want to speak on what we have with keeper strategy at the moment because this is a super popular question that I get this time of year. And it's, Mason, would you rather keep Kyren Williams in the 8th round or Nico Collins in the 4th? And I would say 90% of the questions I get like this, you are always keeping the best player. Because in reality, while a 4th round pick and an 8th round pick may sound like a big difference today, if you just look at the difference between Nico and Kyren, it's going to be much, much bigger. Because you have to remember, if you're talking about like a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick in your keeper league, if the other people in your league are keeping some of the top names, that 4th round pick may actually be a little bit more like a 5th. So what we want to do is you can actually go to the rankings on flockfantasy.com and you can look at Kyren Williams and a 5th round pick versus Nico Collins and maybe like an 8th round pick of what you should expect to select there. So if we actually turn this into a trade, which is an easy way to view how your keeper setup is, you should see, oh, okay, well, I'd rather have Nico Collins and Matthew Golden than Kyren Williams and Rome Odunze. So it's not 100% of the case. I know we've had some questions as of late, like, would you rather keep Barkley at the end of round 1 or Chase Brown in round 5? There is a lot tougher to answer that type question. But if it's like round 4 versus round 8 picks, 99% of the time, I promise you just want to be keeping the best player. The last thing I want to talk about here is going to be where you're evaluating quarterbacks in a 6-point passing touchdown format in comparison to a 4-point passing touchdown league. While, of course, overall quarterback value is going to go up in a 6-point passing touchdown format, there's actually going to be a little bit of a bigger change overall. And that's going to be the type of quarterback that you are wanting to select. If you're playing in a 4-point passing touchdown league, a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, that's going to give you a ton of rushing volume. That's going to give you a lot of rushing touchdowns. That's almost impossible for the pocket passers to be able to catch up on just because the pocket passers are only getting 4 points per passing touchdown. So if we look at where Jalen Hurts is in points per game in a 4-point passing touchdown league, he's at 21 points per game, which is a whole 1.9 fantasy points per game more than what you have with a quarterback like Jared Goff. However, if you're looking at a 6-point passing touchdown format, you'll see that you actually have Jalen Hurts with 21.9 points per game, and Jared Goff goes up to 20.9 with only a 1 point per game difference between the two. You'll see in a 6-point passing touchdown format, Baker Mayfield actually outscored Josh Allen, where Josh Allen, given the rushing upside, is scoring about a point per game more than Baker last season in a 4-point passing touchdown league. So while, of course, yes, we want to be pushing quarterback value up, what we can do instead, if our league mates go crazy with drafting quarterbacks, is you can sit on your hands and you can wait and hopefully get a discount pocket passing quarterback that could be top 5 in the NFL with passing touchdowns, even if he doesn't give you a ton of rushing upside, and take that player at a discount at the very end of your draft. And maybe you take 2 quarterbacks like Jordan Love and Dak Prescott with 2 of your last 4 picks. But I think that's all I have for you. And again, I really encourage you to go check out the draft sheets that we have posted on flockfantasy.com, because if you're going to be looking at your exact league settings, the rankings are going to be different. You can go to the directory, you can find your platform, you can find the amount of teams in your league, the scoring in your league, and the amount of starters that you have, and go to that page because there are 50 different draft sheets for your exact league settings, and I want to make sure you're using the right one. But that's all I got for you. I really do appreciate you. If you're not already a member of flockfantasy.com, like I said, we just dropped a deal that we've never done before. It should be by far and away the best product you ever buy for fantasy football, and at the same time, probably the cheapest. $34 gets you access to everything on the site, including all my draft sheets, including all the draft guides and draft sheets of everybody else on the site for literally $34, one-time payment. You get it till January 1st. And all the rankings, all the tools, you know, everything you see in the videos. But I really appreciate you and really hope we get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.